Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. Come to dinner with us, dear. It's been ages. My mother-in-law, Marianne, cooed over the phone, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I should have known something was up. Marianne never liked me. But my husband, Alex, insisted it was a gesture of peace, and after months of Cold Wars, I figured maybe she was trying to bury the hatchet. We arrived at a fancy, dimly lit restaurant, the kind where waiters wear tuxedos and the silverware is polished to a mirror sheen. Marianne was all smiles, but her eyes, those never smiled. We ordered, and she insisted I try the chef's special. It's divine, she insisted, her smile a little too wide. As we settled into our plush seats at the restaurant, Marianne's eyes scanned the menu, her red nails tapping against the table. You simply must try the risotto al tartufo, she insisted, her voice a silky command. It's their signature dish. The waiter, a young man with a nervous smile, nodded eagerly. An excellent choice, madam. I glanced at Alex, who shrugged, seemingly at ease. Sounds great. Let's go with that, he said. Marianne's smile didn't reach her eyes as she watched me, like a cat eyeing a cornered mouse. And for the lady, maybe something light? The risotto can be quite rich. I wanted to protest, to pick my own meal, but Alex's hand squeezed mine under the table, a silent plea. I sighed. Sure, the risotto sounds lovely. Dinner progressed with mundane chit-chat, Marianne monopolizing most of the conversation. She talked about her bridge club, her recent vacation in the Bahamas, and her plans to renovate their family home, all the while her eyes, sharp and calculating, kept flitting back to me. Then, midway through the main course, something strange happened. The waiter who had served us our food was hastily walking towards our table, his face pale. He whispered something in Marianne's ear, too low for me or Alex to hear. Marianne's face flushed a deep red, and she waved him away with a hiss, not now. Alex and I exchanged puzzled glances. Is everything okay, Mom? He asked. Oh, it's nothing, she replied quickly, a little too quickly. Just a small mistake in the bill. I'll sort it out later. But her hands were trembling, ever so slightly, as she reached for her glass of water. The waiter retreated, but not before shooting me a look filled with something like pity? Warning? Suddenly, the door to the restaurant burst open. Two police officers walked in, their eyes scanning the room until they landed on our table. They marched over, their faces stern. Marianne Delaney, one of them asked. Yes, that's me. What is this about? Marianne's voice was a mix of indignation and fear. We need you to come with us, ma'am. There's been a report we need to discuss with you, involving an ongoing investigation. The restaurant fell silent, all eyes on our table. Alex's jaw dropped, his eyes wide with shock. Mom, what's going on? But Marianne was already being led away, her protests echoing through the now hushed restaurant. As she passed by me, she shot me a glare that could curdle milk, a silent accusation that screamed louder than words. The officers were vague, mentioning only a sensitive matter. They left, with Marianne in tow, her heels clicking furiously against the floor. The air was thick with whispered speculations from the other diners. Alex was fuming, his confusion evident. This must be some mistake. My mother, involved in police business? The remainder of our dinner was a blur. I barely touched the risotto, my appetite lost amidst the unfolding drama. We left the restaurant in a daze, the events of the evening spinning in my mind like a twisted fairy tale. But this was no fairy tale. This was just the beginning of a nightmarish revelation that would turn our lives upside down. The secrets lurking behind Marianne's elegant facade were about to come crashing down, and I had an ominous feeling that whatever was to come would change everything. Halfway through the meal, my stomach started churning. Sweat beaded on my forehead. Are you okay, honey? Alex asked, concern lacing his voice. I tried to nod, but the room was spinning. I excused myself, staggering towards the restroom. Inside, I was violently sick. When I returned, pale and shaking, Marianne's eyes flickered with something unreadable. Probably just a stomach bug, she said nonchalantly. But her glance slid away too quickly. Something was off. Despite my unease, I couldn't shake off the gnawing feeling in my stomach as we drove back home. The image of Marianne being escorted out by the police played over and over in my mind. Alex tried to make light conversation, but the atmosphere was dense, like the calm before a storm. Once home, the queasiness in my stomach worsened. Each twist and churn felt like a warning. I think I need to lie down, I murmured, clutching my abdomen. Alex, looking concerned, followed me to our bedroom, his brow furrowed. You look pale. Maybe you should see a doctor tomorrow? I nodded, crawling into bed. But sleep eluded me. The pain intensified, radiating through my body like electric shocks. Visions of the night, the waiter's pitying look, Marianne's secretive whispers, the abrupt appearance of the police, swirled in my head, each a piece of an unsolved puzzle. Then, in the midst of my restless twisting, I heard it, a faint scratching at the front door. It was late. Who could it be? Stay here. I'll check, Alex said, his voice taut with concern. Peeking through the window, we saw a hooded figure standing at the doorstep, looking around nervously. Alex opened the door a crack, and the figure pushed a crumpled envelope into his hand before darting away into the night. What the? Alex mumbled, opening the envelope. Inside was a hastily scrawled note. She's not safe. Watch what she eats. Trust no one. My heart raced. The cryptic warning, the surreptitious way it was delivered, it all pointed to something sinister. Alex looked at me, his eyes mirroring my fear. We decided to call the police. Waiting for them, my mind raced with terrifying possibilities. Was someone after me? Was Marianne involved? The police arrived and took the note, promising to investigate, but their noncommittal responses did little to ease our fears. The night dragged on, each minute stretching into eternity. My sickness worsened, each wave of nausea stronger than the last. Alex stayed by my side, his presence a small comfort against the growing dread. By morning, I was a mess. Unable to keep anything down, I was rushed to the hospital. The doctors ran tests, their faces grim and focused. I lay there, drifting in and out of consciousness, a prisoner to my own writhing body. Alex was there when I woke up, his face haggard with worry. The doctors can't figure out what's wrong, he whispered. They've ruled out common food poisoning. They're talking about potential contamination. Deliberate. The word hit me like a ton of bricks. Deliberate. Someone had done this to me. But who? And why? As I lay in the hospital bed, the pieces began to fit together in a terrifying picture. The uneasy dinner, Marianne's mysterious confrontation with the police, the anonymous warning, they were all connected, each a clue in a malicious plot against me. But the questions multiplied. What was Marianne hiding? Why would she, or anyone, go to such lengths to harm me? And most importantly, who could we trust? In the midst of my fear and confusion, one thing became clear. This was no simple case of family discord. We were entangled in a web of deceit and danger, and escaping it would require all our wits and courage. As I drifted back into a troubled sleep, I realized that our ordeal was far from over. It was only just beginning. Later, Alex received a call from his cousin who worked at the restaurant. Your mom paid one of the waiters $1,500 to mix something into your wife's food, he whispered, sounding scared. I felt the room tilt. My own mother-in-law had poisoned me. We confronted her the next day. She laughed it off, calling it a harmless prank. Just a bit of laxative, dear, to lighten you up, she said, her laughter chilling my spine. But why? Why would she do something so twisted? In the sterile hospital room, the air was thick with a mixture of antiseptics and unanswered questions. The constant beep of the heart monitor was the only sound that punctuated my racing thoughts. Alex had gone to grab some coffee, leaving me alone with the glaring, fluorescent lights and my swirling fears. That's when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Hesitantly, I answered, "Hello?" Listen carefully. A distorted voice began, urgency lacing each syllable. Marianne is not who she seems. Check her basement. But trust no one, especially not the police. The line went dead. I was left holding the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. This mysterious informant knew things that weren't public knowledge. The warning about the police was especially chilling. Who could we rely on? Who was behind this anonymous guidance? When Alex returned, I relayed the message. His face turned ghostly pale. My mom's basement, he whispered, a sense of dread washing over him. What could be there? We knew we had to find out. Despite my weak state, I insisted on going with Alex. Armed with a sense of desperate determination, we drove to Marianne's house. The place looked deserted, with an eerie stillness hanging over it. Alex found the spare key, and we let ourselves in, the familiar surroundings now seeming foreign and threatening. The house was silent except for our hushed footsteps as we made our way to the basement door. It creaked open, revealing a dimly lit staircase leading into the depths. The basement was cold, the air musty. We flicked on the lights. At first glance, it looked like any other basement. Boxes of old books, discarded furniture. But then, tucked away in a corner, we found it. A makeshift lab of sorts, with beakers, vials, and an array of chemicals that neither of us could identify. Among the clutter, a folder caught our eye. It was filled with photographs, documents, and a series of intricate notes. As we rifled through them, the color drained from Alex's face. The photos were of me, taken over several months. The notes spoke of dosages, effects, and final stages. This is crazy, Alex stammered. Has she been poisoning you systematically? The evidence was overwhelming. Marianne had been experimenting on me, using me as a test subject for some twisted purpose. The realization hit us like a ton of bricks. But why? What was her endgame? And who had tipped us off? Before we could process everything, we heard a noise upstairs. Footsteps. We were not alone. Panicking, we hid behind a shelving unit, holding our breath. Two men descended into the basement, talking in low, urgent tones. We need to find those documents before anyone else does. She said they might be down here. They started searching, moving closer to our hiding spot. I felt Alex's hand grip mine tightly, his fear mirroring my own. Who were these men? And what would they do if they found us? In that moment, I understood the true danger we were in. This wasn't just a family dispute gone wrong. We were caught in a web much more complex and sinister. And as we crouched in the darkness, listening to the intruders, one thing became crystal clear. We were far from understanding the full extent of this nightmare. Digging deeper, the truth unraveled like a sinister thread. Marianne always believed I wasn't worthy of her son. In her twisted mind, making me ill in public, embarrassing me, would open Alex's eyes to my true nature. But her plan backfired. Alex was furious. He cut off all ties with her, declaring that anyone who could harm his wife was no mother of his. Marianne tried to apologize, her facade crumbling, but the damage was done. The men continued their search, rummaging through boxes and papers, oblivious to our hidden presence. The tension in the air was almost palpable. Alex's grip on my hand tightened with each step the men took closer to our hiding spot. Then, as luck would have it, Alex's phone vibrated loudly against the wooden shelf. We froze. The men stopped and turned towards our direction, their eyes narrowing. "There's someone here," one of the men hissed, pulling out a small handgun. We had no choice. We burst from our hiding spot, pushing past the startled men and sprinting up the basement stairs. We could hear them shouting and chasing after us. Adrenaline pumped through my veins, each step fueled by sheer survival instinct. Bursting out of the house, we didn't stop to look back. We just ran to the car and sped off, the sounds of our pursuers fading into the distance. Once we were a safe distance away, we pulled over, panting and trying to process what just happened. "We need to figure out why she's doing this," I said between breaths, the fear slowly giving way to a burning need for answers. Alex, his face a mask of determination, nodded. "There's someone I think we can trust. An old family friend, Dr. Harper. He's been out of touch with my mom for years but might know something." We drove to Dr. Harper's home, a quaint house on the outskirts of the city. He was a retired chemist, a kindly old man with a sharp gaze that missed nothing. Alex explained everything: the poisoning, the lab in the basement, the men in the house, and our narrow escape. Dr. Harper listened intently, his expression turning graver with every word. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and steady. "Marianne was always ambitious, but this is something else. It sounds like she's involved in something dangerous, possibly criminal. But why me? What does she want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Harper sighed, walking over to his bookshelf and pulling out a file. Years ago, Marianne was researching a new type of drug, something that could, in her words, revolutionize personal capabilities, enhance intelligence, physical strength, perception. But the project was shut down due to ethical concerns. He handed us the file. Inside were more documents, similar to those we found in the basement, but older, with Marianne's name all over them. It seemed she continued her research in secret, Dr. Harper continued. And she needed a test subject. Someone close enough to monitor, but not someone who'd be missed immediately if things went wrong. I felt sick to my stomach. I was just a convenient experiment to her. But the anonymous tips, the warning at the restaurant, "Someone else knows and is trying to help us," Alex said, frustration evident in his voice. Dr. Harper looked thoughtful. "It's someone who knows Marianne's operations but doesn't agree with them. Or perhaps someone with their own agenda." We left Dr. Harper's house with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear: Marianne had to be stopped, and we needed to uncover the identity of our mysterious benefactor. As we drove back, the skies darkened, a storm brewing on the horizon. It seemed fitting, mirroring the turmoil in our hearts. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a battle for the truth. And we were right in the eye of the storm. Though I was shaken, this incident brought Alex and me closer. We realized the value of trust and the depth of manipulation some are capable of. I learned to be more cautious, to understand that not all threats come from strangers. Sometimes, they're disguised in the smiles of family. Marianne's act was a blessing in disguise. It removed her toxicity from our lives, allowing us to grow stronger together. But sometimes, in quiet moments, I wonder about the darkness in the hearts of those we least expect, and I'm reminded to never let my guard down again. The journey back felt longer than usual, every mile stretching out before us like a path to an uncertain future. Our minds were a whirlwind of fear, suspicion, and determination. The storm clouds gathered overhead, as if nature itself sensed the brewing conflict. As we neared our home, Alex suddenly gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Wait, that's Detective Larkin's car outside our house," he said, his voice tense. Detective Larkin had been the lead investigator since Marianne's arrest. But why was he here, unannounced, at our house? We entered cautiously, finding the detective in our living room, his hat in his hands, looking somber. "Alex, I need to talk to you." "It's about your mother," he began, avoiding eye contact. "What about her?" Alex asked, a sense of dread settling over us. "She's escaped police custody. We think she had inside help. There's more. We found evidence in her cell indicating that she might be heading here, to you." The blood drained from our faces. Marianne, on the loose and possibly coming after us? The situation was spiraling out of control. "But why come here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "That's what we're trying to figure out. We believe she might be wanting to retrieve something or someone," Larkin replied, his eyes locking with mine. A chill ran down my spine. We decided to set up a watch. Detective Larkin arranged for police surveillance around our house, promising to catch Marianne if she showed. Night fell, and with it, the storm broke. Thunder roared and lightning illuminated the sky, mirroring the turmoil within our hearts. Hours ticked by, the tension mounting with each passing moment. Then, amidst the howling wind and rain, we heard it, a faint scratching at the back door, like before. Heart pounding, I looked at Alex. Without a word, he nodded, and we cautiously approached. Peering through the window, we saw a shadowy figure, drenched, standing in the rain. It was Marianne, her eyes wild and desperate. We opened the door, Detective Larkin and his team ready to pounce. But what happened next stunned us all. Marianne, instead of lashing out, simply collapsed to her knees, sobbing. I'm so sorry," she cried out, her voice lost in the storm. She confessed everything, the experiments, the betrayal, the escape. She spoke of her obsession with her research, how it twisted her morality, her desperate need to prove her theories at any cost. As she was taken away, she looked at us, her eyes filled with regret. "I never meant to hurt anyone, especially not you," she whispered before the police led her away. The aftermath was a blur of emotions and legalities. Marianne faced severe charges, her life's work discredited and destroyed. Alex and I were left to rebuild our lives, our trust in the world around us shaken to its core. But amidst the wreckage, there was a glimmer of hope. The anonymous tips, the warnings, they came from an unlikely source. Dr. Harper, who had been keeping an eye on Marianne's activities from a distance, unable to partake in her schemes but too fearful to confront her directly. In the end, the truth was bittersweet. We had lost so much, but we had also gained a deeper understanding of the human psyche, the delicate balance between genius and madness, and the strength we possess to overcome even the darkest of trials. As the storm cleared and the first rays of dawn lit up the sky, Alex and I stood together, looking out at a world that was forever changed. We knew our journey was far from over, the scars of the past etched deep in our hearts. But we also knew that together, we could face whatever lay ahead, bound by our love and the hard-won wisdom of our extraordinary ordeal.